Ferland Mendy is a bit of a late bloomer in comparison to many of today's modern talents. He hung around at French team Le Havre for years, shuffling between their youth team and Ligue 2 before being transferred to Lyon at the age of 22. It wasn't until this past season that he was noticed by Europe's big clubs, but Mendy did start showing his quality instantly upon reaching the top flight. What sticks out immediately upon studying film is Mendy's role as a passer. This is a rather unconventional highlight quality for left back, but being able to distribute at a high level is the way of the future for all defenders. When Lyon had the ball, Mendy liked to drift into the left half space and conduct play on his side of the field. He constantly looked to play vertical passes to the multitude of Lyon players between the lines, which made him an important part of Lyon's ball progression. His skill in this area shows up in more granular passing data. Mendy completed 5.25 passes into the final third per 90 minutes at a 76.5% success rate, which betters the numbers of Sergio Reguilón's and Theo Hernandez's time at Real Madrid, and stacks up pretty well against Jordi Alba. Marcelo is far ahead of everyone else in this category, though he is arguably the best ball progressor of all time from the fullback position. Overall, Mendy completed close to 55 passes per 90 at an 85.6% clip in 2018-2019, which is a strong percentage for someone who attempts vertical passes at an above average rate. Mendy's ability to play these balls will be tougher at Madrid, assuming Zidane's offensive structure continues to provide few options between the lines. However, the Le Havre product should still be able to retain some of his volume even under the worst scenario, which will provide Madrid with an invaluable way to break down opposition defenses when Marcelo is on the bench. Without possession, Mendy is clearly not a traditional fullback, as highlighted by his aforementioned affinity for sitting in the left half space. Nevertheless, he is perfectly capable of making overlapping runs and, in fact, shows great offensive positional awareness in all aspects of the left back role. Based on the location of his wing partner, Mendy will seamlessly rotate between narrow and wide positions and make overlapping and underlapping runs. This is another example of how modern fullbacks are evolving, and this trait will be a necessary skill if he is to thrive under the fluid nature of Zidane's tactics. Once in the final third, Mendy likes to cut inside and shoot with his right foot if the opportunity presents itself. This part of his game isn't a major weapon yet though, as his weak foot looks much better when restricted to passing. When using his strong leg, Mendy is more effective dropping his shoulder and driving to the goal line to cross the ball. This can easily be seen on film and in the data. Crossing-wise, his numbers aren't spectacular, but it is worth noting that Lyon do not rely as heavily on a crossing game as Real Madrid do. The eye test shows that Mendy should scale fairly well to Zidane's much more cross-reliant philosophy, but he does still need to sharpen his crossing. Most of Mendy's deliveries are whipped, driven crosses that can lack height and variation in speed. Thus, at the moment, he does not look like a viable deep crossing option in the vein of someone like Marcelo. Mendy's dribbling numbers are a bit misleading. The stats merely represent his ability to beat a player once he incites a tackle, which Mendy does through his pace in 1-versus-1 situations. But when asked to maneuver past opponents in tight spaces, he falls short of acceptable and far short of Marcelo's technical mastery. Mendy's first touch can also be a bit heavy at times, which doesn't help him in these situations. The lack of close control along with an unreliable first touch also becomes problematic for Mendy's press resistance. It caps his passing skill due to his inability to create a good angle for himself, forcing him to mainly push the ball backwards or sideways. If he is pressed well enough, he can lose possession or panic into playing a wild long ball or unbalanced pass with his weaker foot. If this happens, Mendy is always quick to sprint back into position in order to make up for his mistake, even if that error occurs 80 yards from his own goal. His impressive work rate, combined with his pace, gives him the raw tools to be an elite recovery defender, something that Marcelo is not. That could make Mendy potentially very important for Zidane, as the French manager has historically been unable to design a consistently effective counterpress. But Mendy's ability to defend on the counterattack extends beyond simply tracking down his man. If the pass does not appear to be coming into the defensive zone, Mendy will scan the situation and prime himself to cover runners that escape the attention of his fellow defenders. If the pass does appear to enter his defensive zone but has not been released yet, Mendy will block the inside passing lane in favor of the less dangerous pass out wide. His positioning in these situations matches the larger pattern of Mendy's desire to hunt interceptions. This desire influences his smart positioning, but can cause Mendy to become too focused on the intended path of the ball. Hence, he can sometimes lose sight of his man, allowing the opposition to get in behind him. When Lyon had time to organize their defense, Mendy liked to harass the man receiving the ball. If his man moved deeper, Mendy would follow him aggressively and nip at his heels. This style of defense worked well with Mendy's 6'1" frame and jumping ability, as many of these aggressive movements resulted in challenges in the air, which he won a little over 50% of the time. Height in fullbacks is a rare thing and thus adds significant defensive value to what Mendy can bring to Madrid. Where Mendy falls short is in 1 versus 1 defense. He can more than hold his own in situations where attackers are bursting towards the goal line, and he can use his pace and physicality to close in. But when attackers face Mendy up, he tends to continually back away, looking to block off the crossing lane instead of engaging. This is likely why Mendy attempts very few tackles per 90 in comparison to Marcelo, who will never win any awards for defensive activity. Such a passive stance puts the onus on the offensive player to manufacture space, which tricky customers can accomplish through dramatic fakes and turns. Mendy can be twisted inside out a little too easily by this, as he lacks lateral agility, at least partly due to his height. This was a weakness that Eder Militao had as well, but, like with him, it does not change the fact that Mendy is an excellent talent. He is a strong passer, solid creator, and a defensive upgrade over Marcelo, all things that are necessary to be a second option left back at Real Madrid and, hopefully, a future starter. Thanks for watching this week's School of Real Madrid video. If you like our work, please consider supporting us through our Patreon, and be sure to follow us on all our social media channels.